For 2 days, the Rouge River had been rising. By the evening of April 7th, 1947, floodwaters surged through Dearborn, Michigan, ripping out telephone poles and devouring the banks where Henry Ford had once stood watching fish dart through the shallows. The same river that had powered his vast estate now turned violent and uncontrollable. Somewhere beneath the dark, churning current, the turbines of his private hydroelectric plant sputtered and died. The lights went out. Inside Fair Lane, the 56-room mansion Ford had built along the river, servants hurried through shadowed corridors, lighting candles and kerosene lamps. Firelight danced across limestone walls and vaulted ceilings. In an upstairs bedroom, the man who had once electrified America, who had helped put the nation on wheels, now lay illuminated only by flickering flames. He was 83 years old. Henry Ford had designed Fair Lane to function independently of the outside world. Its powerhouse produced enough electricity not only for the estate itself, but for parts of the surrounding town. For more than 3 decades, the system had never failed. Now, on the night he needed it most, the river he had mastered refused to obey. Clara Ford, his wife of 59 years, sat beside him in the darkened room. With the telephone lines down, she could only rely on instinct and desperation. When Henry complained that he felt unwell, she sent their chauffeur out into the storm in search of a doctor. Help came too late. The man who had transformed the 20th century died under conditions his parents would have recognized in 1863. No electricity, no machines, only candlelight and the relentless roar of floodwaters in the darkness. This is the story of that house. How it came to be built, what it meant to the man who created it, and why, in the end, even the river could not save him. Chapter 1. The believer Clara Bryant was not a woman who waited for life to happen. Born in Wayne County, Michigan, in 1866, she grew up on a farm where work mattered more than poetry. As the eldest of 10 children, she learned responsibility early, cooking, cleaning, caring for younger siblings before she was old enough to imagine a different future. Yet she did imagine one. At rural dances held in inns and taverns, Clara watched the young men who asked her to waltz and quietly judged which of them carried ambition behind their smiles. In 1885, she met a thin 22-year-old farm boy with intense eyes who spoke about machines the way others spoke about horses. His name was Henry Ford. Most people found him odd. Clara saw possibility. Henry had grown up in nearby Springwells Township, but never loved farm life. While other boys competed over straight furrows in plowed fields, Henry dismantled watches to understand their gears. At 16, he left home for Detroit, apprenticing in machine shops and repairing steam engines across southern Michigan. By the time he met Clara, he spoke openly of building a horseless carriage, one powered by gasoline, that would change how people traveled. She believed him. They married in 1888 on Clara's 22nd birthday and built their first home themselves. From timber Henry cut by hand. For 3 years they tried to live the life expected of them on farmland, given as a wedding gift. But Henry spent his nights in a workshop instead of the fields. Clara brought him meals, held lanterns while he worked, ignored neighbors who whispered that he was chasing foolish dreams. In 1891, she followed him to Detroit, trading open fields for rented rooms and uncertainty when he accepted a job at Edison Illuminating Company. There, Henry thrived, rising to chief engineer while secretly building engines in a brick shed behind their house. On Christmas Eve, 1893, Clara dripped gasoline into an intake valve while Henry spun a flywheel. The engine roared to life in their kitchen. She called it wonderful. Their infant son slept nearby. Henry later gave her a title that followed her for the rest of her life, The Believer. The End, by candlelight half a century later. That same woman sat beside him while floodwaters drowned the powerhouse he had built with Thomas Edison's help. On April 7th, 1947, Fair Lane went dark. There was no heat but the fireplace. No light but oil lamps and candles. Outside, rain battered the riverbanks as Clara wrapped blankets around her husband. Shortly before midnight, Henry whispered that he felt unwell. She sent the chauffeur into the storm, called for help. At 11:40 p.m., Henry Ford died of a cerebral hemorrhage. He passed as he had entered the world by firelight in silence, while water rushed through the darkness beyond the walls. The next morning, Detroit awoke to headlines announcing his death. Factories halted. Streetcars stopped. Gas stations closed. 7 million Americans paused in mourning. For 2 days, more than 100,000 people filed past his coffin. The pioneer was gone. Clara remained at Fair Lane 3 more years before she, too, was buried beside him. Today the house still stands. The Rouge River still flows. And when evening shadows stretch across the old limestone walls, it is not difficult to imagine candle flames flickering once more in the rooms above, where a man who changed the world finally surrendered to the dark